It's getting really difficult out there. People are job hunting. It's very difficult to find new job opportunities. And we're going to run through a few examples of how difficult it is getting for people through the job hunt. Let's listen to this woman here.
Video is for recruiters, hiring managers, and employers. If you're not one of those people, scroll past this video. I'm done. I've been applying to jobs for the past 2 years since I graduated. I graduated college almost 2 years ago. I have 2 degrees. I had 2 internships in college. I was top of my class. Since graduating, I have published a book. Okay, I wrote and self-published a book, and yet that's still not good enough for you people. You still want 5 to 10 years of experience for an entry-level job. Where do you think we're supposed to get this experience if no one wants to hire us? How are we supposed to get the experience if no one wants to hire us without experience? Like, make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And then today, for example, I was all excited. I had an interview for this fancy PR firm in Denver because I'm moving to Denver like next week. And I actually thought that I had a chance of getting this job. I know that sounds pathetic, but I got really excited. I got my hopes up. I spent 2 hours prepping for the interview all morning. I got dressed up, straightened my hair. And then 5 minutes into the Zoom call, I get an email from the founder, the CEO of the company saying, "Oh, sorry, we already filled the position and we forgot that, I forgot that this interview was like already scheduled." She forgot about the interview. And I'm just like, I literally, like, you couldn't have told me this sooner. I spent my entire morning getting ready for this interview just to find out they already filled the position. That is so disrespectful. That is so unprofessional. I don't care how important you are, like you're a CEO, whatever, I don't care. That's unprofessional. You don't do that to people. Like, I'm still a human. I'm still a person with feelings, and also like time is precious, and I spent all morning preparing for this interview that you just forgot about, and you didn't even tell me until like 5 minutes into the interview. The fuck? I'm sorry if like this is controversial. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm done. I have no fucks left to give. I'm done. This past 2 years, like I've had so many rejection letters. I've gotten over 500 rejection letters. I've only gone on like maybe 10 interviews, and half of those interviews I go through like 3 rounds of interviews for this company that I'm applying for, and they don't even tell me until the 3rd round of interviews, oh yeah, the pay is like 17 an hour, which is like minimum wage. I just don't understand how these people can go about doing this, like getting people's hopes up just to have them come crashing down. I feel like my mental health the past 2 years has severely suffered because of the job market right now, and because of all these employers posting jobs. A lot of them aren't even real. They're ghost jobs. I don't understand what's happening. And then these recruiters reach out to me and say, "Oh, we'd love to interview you. We'd love to hire you for this position." And then they just ghost me. Or they tell me the position's already been filled. You wanted me. You reached out to me, and then you let me down. It's giving.
So here we've got a clear scenario where you're applying for jobs since graduating. She's realizing that, getting all those 2 degrees, even, publishing her own book, it's not really paying off. And this is something I advise to everyone who's at junior level. Try and get as much experience as you can in the real world. Having more qualifications, even the self-published book, which might sound impressive, it doesn't really translate to the workplace culture. If you want to work in an office job, you need to get as much experience as you can as young as you can, because that will really pay off for you. Now, when she's talking about being told about being informed that the interview isn't going ahead so close to the time of the interview after you've got ready for the interview, I've had instances like that where I was waiting at a hedge fund for an interview that a recruiter has scheduled, and then I got found out at the last minute that the company completely forgot about the interview. And this is quite annoying. It did waste my morning in that case. I wasted her morning, it sounds like here. So one thing I'd advise people is just to get used to rejections. I know that sounds harsh, but like, I just get used to it. It's just part of the process. You get detached from that when you're doing job hunts. You just get on with your life and keep going until you find a job that works for you. And then in terms of the society, I know there's many social issues going on right now, but a key cause of mental health issues is the finances and the economy and the way people are really struggling right now. So she's making a good point here. Now, the whole point of what I'm trying to explain to you here is that it's very important to be detached from the way things are going. I know how rough the job market is. I know it is easy to get emotional like she is, but you just keep going and I know it sounds bad to say just be robotic and keep going until your situation improves, but there's very few options that people really have, and really try to increase your leverage over time. And I'm not under any illusion, how difficult that is, but that's really the best advice I could give in these type of scenarios.
To kind of set the scene here, I have a bachelor's degree in economics. I graduated with honors, magna cum laude, with study abroad experience, and a semester early. So I have a proven history of hard work and reliability. That's not really a question with me. So when I was applying to jobs, one of my first interviews for a full-time position after I graduated was with a staffing company in a city 4.5 hours away from my college town. And I was still in school when I started applying for jobs, so I had to travel and miss class and take days off of my job at the time to go interview for this. So it was a 5-step interview process for an entry-level position at a staffing company. 5-step process: phone screen, phone interview, virtual interview, in-person shadow experience kind of interview, and then a final presentation to management. So I made it all the way through to the shadowing experience. So I was required to drive to the corporate office, which was 4.5 hours away, and do this experience if I wanted any chance of getting the job. So I drove the 4.5 hours. They wanted me to do it on like a Wednesday, so it was the middle of the week. I drove 4.5 hours, 4.5 hours back the next day. I had to expense everything myself. They didn't offer a stipend. They didn't offer any kind of assistance. I, expense the gas for a 9-hour round trip, overnight stay, everything else myself. I get to this interview. The only thing they do offer to pay for is my parking in the parking garage that's connected to the skyscraper where the office is located. So that saved me $25, I guess. But I'm in this office. 3 separate people that I shadow tell me they are very money motivated. All 3 of them tell me they're very money motivated, which already was weird to me. The fact that all 3 of them said it. And all of them say that, it's kind of a hard industry, staffing isn't always great, the job market's not always what it should be, yada, yada, yada. And that also made me suspicious because they all said something kind of along those lines. So at the very end of the interview, I'm talking to this manager. She's going on about how she never expected to make as much money as she did right when she got the job because you earn commission, but you can only earn commission after the first year. I was like, oh, that's great. Like, I'm very motivated. Like, I think I could do well in a position like this. And she has this whole spiel. She turns around this iPad with these beautiful graphics in order to show me that the starting salary for this position is $35,000. $35,000 to start for a full year. For a full year, you have no option for commission, and it's $35,000.
So here is again another example. She thinks having a good education is going to save her, but often it doesn't. It really is about experience and being able to navigate that corporate environment. The other thing is about driving 4 hours. One thing I'd say is if you're going to have a first round job interview, I understand there are exceptions to the rule, but try to get that first round interview via Zoom, because many companies have adapted to Zoom during the lockdown period where everyone had to stay at home. So you should just say, oh, please can we do the first interview via Zoom just to make sure we're all on the same page, and then the second interview in person, little things like that. Or sometimes I've had instances where the first interview's been in person, second interview's been on Zoom, and that's very convenient for me, and that's how I try to operate, right? And it's very important for you to be understanding any red flags, right? If you go to the interview and people are stressed out, if people are saying they're money motivated, what does that mean? It doesn't pay well at the start, like she did end up finding out. If it's commission driven kind of pay, how much would the commissions be? How realistic is it be able to make those sales targets? All of type of incidences. And if you can, as early as you can, find out what the salary would be. Now, she ended up driving 4 hours just to find out the salary is very low. Do your best to kind of find out, like I say, before you go and overextend yourself for just a simple job interview, traveling 4 hours, studying for maybe a case study, get some basic details, what is the pay going to be? If I'm traveling this distance, are they going to reimburse me? Things like that. Those little things are things you should do so you could avoid this kind of toxic interview process where they do try to take advantage of you. Here's another example of this.
Some time ago, I was interviewing for a creative director position at a big car company. They have like 200 locations statewide. I sent them my portfolio, my resume. They wrote me back almost immediately. They were like really excited to meet me. So the next day, had an interview there. It was going great. Basically, I would be overseeing all of the social media, all the marketing, pretty much everything for this car company. Again, 200 branches. It's huge. And this would be their corporate office. Anyway, it was going great up until we got to talking about salary. There was two guys interviewing me, and we got talking numbers, and the tone just completely changed. They asked me what I was thinking, and this job, I mean, it's easily 100K, and that's probably underselling it. Their eyes were just like dinner plates. They were just like, and I'll never forget like the way that they fucking laughed. It was like this nervous laughter, not making fun of me, but like, when it settled down for a minute, they were like, they had this moment of honesty. They were like, listen, man, we can't come anywhere near that. And I said, well, like how much were you guys thinking? And they kind of looked at each other, and then they looked at me, and they're like, we're only able to offer you $50,000 for a job with that amount of responsibility, not to mention the amount of experience it required. It was just absolutely baffling to me. And that apparently this story is not uncommon. Jobs just don't pay shit anymore. It's outrageous.
So again, another interesting example of how companies try to lowball you a job that could be technically should be paying, six figures, low six figures, 100K. He's facing a scenario where they're trying to ask him to take a pay of 50K instead, which is like a 50% pay cut. Now, that's very important to get the salary information early. Check Glassdoor, check, information online about the company and what they'd typically be paying for these type of roles, and try to plan ahead as much as possible. If I was in that situation and they were lowballing me significantly, I'll just cut my losses, end the interview, and then continue the job hunt and do my own thing separately. Just to save yourself the time. Don't waste your time having a big debate about the salary if they're really saying they're not going to offer you a good salary.
Back to your
companies want everything to go back to the way they were in 2019. And right now, what they're doing after these layoffs is lowering salaries back to around what they were around then. For some quick background, I work in the creative space. I'm a production artist, which is just a fancy way of saying I do photo and video for a living. So all my takes are based on, that information, or that industry rather. A few months back, because we're always looking for a better paying job, right? I noticed that the salaries were just not lining up, and it was just as bad when recruiters were reaching out. And typically when they reach out, they're looking to fold and close immediately to get you to sign up so they get paid. And it was at that point that I turned my side gig, which is just work I would do to buy equipment I did not need, into a more sustainable, potentially full-time position, which, because of the layoffs we went through a few weeks back at the company I used to work for, that positioned me much better than most others, unfortunately. And it's not just that the companies want to pay you less, they want you to do more. So for an example for this is that photographer positions now require people for some reason to know Premiere or Resolve along with After Effects. And that is not a photographer position at that point when they want you to do videos. That is a production artist, and they're not willing to pay what it costs to pay a production artist to have on staff.
So this is quite a common pattern when it comes to, hiring practices now. They'll give you one job, but they'll want you to do 3 other people's jobs. So it's like, okay, cool. For example, in finance, I've seen roles where they want you to know risk management for commodities, but then they're like, oh, we'll need you to support the structured rates and corporate bond trading too, because, we're short of staff and, you have like 5 people doing 10 people's job, thing like that. And in this case, he's talking about, if he's working as a photographer or a videographer, and then this company is expecting him to also have some other video editing skills that would typically be done by a different individual, right? If you have a team of people working for a company. And this is what's happening. These companies are really exploiting people with layoffs, lower salaries, making you do more for less. And an important skill he's developed for his side hustle, which I assume is photography too, is he's understand the importance of having your technical skill, whether it's photography or videography, but combining that with developing the most important skills to survive, essentially, is sales and marketing. So I'm sure he's been able to do that effectively, so he can charge contract hours, raise his rates, work as an individual who's self-employed, because I'm kind of a little bit short of his explanation here, but in this clip, he also would mention something around the salary for some of these jobs being in New York for about $40,000. Now, $40,000 for working in New York City is quite low pay. And this is try to exploit you with this type of low pay. And this is why I advise you to really maximize all your individual unique traits, right? So if you're, in this guy's case, a photographer, you can leverage that, as I say, to become self-employed. Look for remote opportunities so you're not in a high cost of living location, even if the pay is slightly low and you get the option to work for a company for a decent salary, and it's not in a New York, it's not in London, but they allow you to live, work remotely, or maybe remotely for several days a week. That will really be a massive game changer in terms of what you can save and invest instead of working for a company that is exploiting you and creating this type of exploitative culture of employees. Now, that was just some key points from some different examples. We saw many different demographics, many different professions, and it's a very difficult time for people who are job searching in this rough job market. Now, if you want some career advice to help you navigate through this job hunt and this job search, feel free to reach out to me. I have a career advice service, a link in description, and I've worked at, if you're new to the channel, at many top companies for over 10 years within finance, investment banking, sales and trading, and things like that. At Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, so I understand the complex corporate environment, navigating that office politics, dealing with these type of job searches and trying to get those top corporate roles. So I'll be happy to help. Reach out to me, link in description. Let me know in the comments how your job search is going if you are hunting for a new opportunity out there. And there are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.